Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the newest episode of the Theater Enthusiast podcast. I'm so excited to welcome our next guest. She is a Lortel Award winning director. That's right, I said it. She also has a show going on at Signature Theater, right? Signature Theater, Dave Malloy's Three Houses. She also directed Laura Benanti's Nobody Cares that just finished. I can't speak today. Just finished its run at Audible Theater, Minetta Lane. Fun fact, I actually ushered at that theater eons ago before Audible bought it. And then, yeah, this was like over 10 years ago, just aging myself as we for Zoom for the first time. Anyway, please welcome Annie Tippe. Woo, yeah, woo, woo. You can hype yourself up.
Yeah.
Mm,
Whoop, whoop.
woo. I always tell people I used to have an applause app on my phone, and then I would play it and nobody could hear it over Zoom anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The tech is too complex. I'm happy to self clap
Yeah,
myself
please.
on.
I'll
That's
do a round of applause, literally. I'm circling the applause.
single golf clap.
Oh, no, come on. Hype it like, what? Yeah, yeah. I'll do it for you.
A vibrant golf clap.
Yes. Just like add some extra flair to it. Amy, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Of course, like I mentioned to you before, or like when I asked you to come on, I guess I didn't say this to you, but I kind of like had an idea of like who you were, but I never like put two and two together until a mutual friend of ours was like, oh, this film festival, this person's going to be here. You should like talk to her about having her on. And then I saw your short film, and then I spoke with your fiance after, and I'm like, I need to get her on my podcast. And he's like, yes, reach out to her. So
Yes, my agent, my unofficial
yeah.
agent.
Well, I wasn't like, oh, I must do this. I was like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna reach out to her and have her come on. He's like, you totally should. It's like, great. And
Very sweet.
that's what it was. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you for coming on. Welcome. So I always start with, where are you from?
I am from Los Angeles, California, but
Mhm.
don't hold it against me.
Nothing,
That is
nothing
that
here.
is where I grew up.
Mhm.
I grew up in kind of a film family.
Mhm.
Well, not kind of. My mom is a costume designer, and my father used to work in animation. And so yeah, I'm an LA girl, but I've lived in New York. In September, it will be 18 years, which
Oh,
I'm very
wow.
excited about. It's that good half of your life moment when you reach the midpoint.
I think you and I are twins in that. I mean, I'm from Long Island, I'm from New York, but living in the city,
Yeah.
I think is 18. You know what? I think it's longer. I think it's longer. Yeah.
Don't let that 20-year anniversary go by. That's
Oh,
huge.
no, no. I think it's 19 years actually. It's like completely aging myself. I've aged myself so many times on this podcast, but
Age is
yeah.
cool. It age is
Age,
an undeniable truth.
I say age and time are illusions. Like, right. And
You and I are on opposite sides of that. I'm like, age is real and a fact.
yeah. Well, no, like I know how old I am, and I'm just like, I don't feel that way. I feel like I don't look that way. I don't act that way. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, being like mid to late 30s, I'm like, really? I feel like I'm 25 half of the time. I mean, my hip might say differently, but other than that,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
100%. Yeah, getting out of bed every morning and
Oh, yeah.
wondering what happened in the night that could cause you to
Could also just be your
become so
mattress.
shrunken.
Yeah. My mom,
No, I can't blame the mattress anymore. We did get a new mattress. Yeah, it's very orthopedic, so I think
oh, mhm.
the issue is me.
Yeah. I know. I stretch, and then my hip still is like, nope, you have a bad hip. Anyway, so what made you decide to move to New York?
I wanted to go to NYU. It was the only, I mean, I wanted to be in New York.
Mhm.
We had come here when I was a kid, probably every other year, and my parents had taken my brother and I to see shows. They had both gotten their start doing theater, and it just became a love of mine quite early. And I knew I wanted to go to NYU because uh, I had done the summer program, I think my junior year of high school, And I had you just write an essay to get into the summer program, and I mean, and pay. Um, they don't like scout you for talent. So anyone can do it. And I was in the musical theater program for this month-long thing. And the first day I got there, I just looked around me at all of the performers. I'm like wearing tap shoes that I had, just purchased for the first time. And I just thought, oh, this is a grave mistake. I'm not meant to be here and I'm not meant to be doing this, which was really horrifying. But at the end of the program, they talked about all the different studios at NYU. And there was this one studio called Playwrights Horizons Theater School, which is like tenuously tied to the
Mhm.
off-Broadway theater, Playwrights Horizons. And the program just sounded like my heaven. Basically, they described it as a program in which you could do anything, focus on anything, and focus on multiple things.
Mhm.
But the main draw was that they had a directing program. But they said if you want to design, you can design. If you want to act, you want to act. And when I was thinking about school, I was like, well, I think I'd like to direct, and I'd like to act, and I'd like to design. So the program just felt made for me. And very luckily, I applied, I got in, and I've been in New York,
Mhm.
yeah, to age myself 18 years.
Yeah. That's so interesting to say because my track was a little bit different with going to school, because it took me a very long time to tell my parents I wanted to go into theater.
Yeah,
They claimed they were supportive, but they really weren't. And you know, because it's always I say that because I used to work in the hotel industry and you'd have a lot of families come in for kids auditioning for theater programs in different universities. And I would just see how supportive the parents were to their
yeah,
kids like wanting to audition for these schools. And I was like, I didn't have that. So I went to Pace, so I got into Pace and then I auditioned for musical theater.
yeah,
I didn't get into musical theater, but the head at the time when she was interviewing me, she's like, well, what else do you want to do? I'm like, oh, I want to direct. I want to blah, blah, blah. She's like, I think you're probably better off in the BA program because you can
yeah,
do all these things. And so I was very green going into the program. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. And I was pretty much just taking all the classes that my friends were taking.
yeah,
And then junior year, I was in a play. And then I was meeting with some professor about what classes I need to take the next semester. And he said, you're taking all of these BFA classes. Why don't you just get a BFA in acting? And we'll use this show that you were just in as your audition so you don't have to re-audition for the program. And it's like,
hello.
great. And so then we like left the office. The head of the theater department was there, and he said, "Yeah, we're going to use her performance in the food chain as her BFA audition, so she's going to get a BFA." And and, like the head of the department was like, "Okay."
Okay, yeah, that's one way to do it.
Yeah, so that's how I like got my BFA in acting, but I
Yeah.
still wanted to direct. So luckily I was like able to direct a show my senior year, but that's a whole other tortured. Um, but no, I've always wanted to direct like ever since I was a senior in high school.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So I mean, it's similar to, that one program, but I mean each college program is different. I mean, as we said, I came to college many eons ago. And so the program is so different now. It's its own performing arts school. So I don't even know
yeah,
what
yeah,
they offer there now and
yeah,
what that would look like.
yeah,
Yeah. So I'm getting backtracking a little bit. So growing up in LA, were you always interested in performing? Was it like just natural because your parents were in the industry that you wanted to somehow be involved with doing something
yeah.
with entertainment?
It's a good question. I feel like my entire childhood was just filled with sports, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I don't remember doing theater programs or arts camp. I feel like any spare minute that my brother and I were not uh, in school, we were playing one of four sports. And
Mm.
by the time I got to high school, I feel like that was really when I you take the AM drama class at,
Mhm.
God, it was like 6 a.m. or no, it was at 7 a.m. It was a 7 a.m. drama class. And you could do the plays and the musicals. And I just I was a very theatrical kid. I think it was just inevitable that it was going to find me and I was going to find it. But I
Mhm.
really appreciate actually that my whole childhood was focused on this kind of team building effort with basketball and with soccer and even tennis, the volley that you have with
Yeah.
someone. Because I it sounds kind of silly, but I do feel like the basis for my work now as a director does kind of tie to team
Yeah.
sports, just
Yeah.
like the dynamics that
Mhm.
you create as a team member, and then as a leader, how you choose to lead your pack of people. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was definitely inevitable. Now when I watch, like home videos of me in my best friend's backyard making up music, I'm like, oh, of course you were gonna end up where you were. But
Yeah.
yeah, kind of a curly route on my way there.
Yeah. No, I'm happy that you mentioned sports informed you of how you direct, because I was going to ask that question, but then you brought it up. So there we go. We can touch upon that more later. So you get into NYU, you're in the Playwrights Horizons track. So what did you study? What is your degree in? Like, how was that program for you? Please talk while I step off camera to turn on my air conditioning.
Fabulous.
Right back.
Um, God, what was my degree in is a great question. I'm not convinced that I graduated from NYU because I did not receive a diploma and I did fail several classes. So
You did
let's
fail several classes, you
I
said.
did, not
Okay.
my theater classes, but I the
If it makes
science credits were,
if it makes you feel better, I have recurring dreams of either being in like college or high school about like not handing in a homework assignment or like not doing some sort of project. So I
oh
don't
yeah.
know, or
Oh
like
yeah.
feeling like what that stems from.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, failure, fear, fear of
Probably.
fear of failure and actual failure. What I think my BFA was, I think it was just in like drama. But my focus was like my track, and
Hmm.
this has changed now within the Playwrights Horizons program, but my track was directing design track. And then
Hmm.
I performed for friends' plays. I've sung in an a cappella group.
I was going to ask because I listened to in part of my research, I listened to a few minutes of a podcast you were on, and they mentioned how you were in a really great a cappella group.
I was in a world-class a cappella group, which
NBD, guys, no big deal.
it's
Yeah.
it's no big deal, but I know it's definitely I mean, among the nerdiest things about me. But what was so cool about that a cappella group was that the people that performed in it, they were so remarkable. I mean, I sing fine.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm a good hang. So I was a good member of the group, but that some of the members of the group, they've just gone on to do such remarkable things. Like Shayna Taub is the,
Oh, wow.
composer
Yeah.
and star of Suffs. She was kind of the leader of our a cappella group.
Just
Ali
so
Stroker is a Tony
yeah.
winner and a genius. Yeah,
I
these are
will
the
say,
people
like,
I get to sing with.
getting back to Shoshana Taub, it's so interesting to me because this is a tie-in to Dave Malloy because she was originally in Natasha Pierre and now she's like,
Shayna, yes, she
oh,
was.
Shayna,
Yeah,
not Shoshana.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
Wow.
okay.
Bye.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Shoshana Bean also on the mind, a great singer as well.
I
Yeah, Shayna was in, yeah, I think from Comet through their productions of Great Comet at the Tent.
yeah.
Yeah, Shayna is remarkable, and just all of these people were as big an
Yeah.
influence, I feel like, on me as
Mhm.
my program. But the classes that I took were
Yeah.
mostly directing
Mhm.
directing and design classes, which I
Yeah.
just absolutely loved. I
Yeah.
loved I loved school. I feel very lucky. I just loved it.
Yeah. So what made you want to get into directing?
Uh, we had this drama competition at my
Mhm.
high school. So in LA, in the public schools, there's
Mhm.
this thing called DTask, which I I don't know what it stands for, drama schools, something like that. And it's a drama competition where you basically perform these 10-minute scenes from either plays or musicals, or in the spring, it's all Shakespeare.
Mhm.
can either condense a play, you can adapt it into 10 minutes, or you can just do a 10-minute scene from a play. And when I started doing this festival, I just felt like I was in heaven. And it
Mhm.
wasn't just, I mean, I loved performing in the scenes, but it was getting to direct them and also adapt them, which I feel like um, really ties to the work that I mainly do now as a director, which
Mhm.
is not so much devising, but excuse me, but like new
Yeah.
work process and figuring out how with a writer you're going to adapt, condense, change, edit what you have made to make it the most potent piece of work you can. So these competitions, they're very influential on me. And when I applied to school, they're like, please send a directing sample, which like what 16-year-old has that? But I had made these little um they look like sports plays. I mean, it's just staging from these drama festivals. It's just little X's on a piece of paper. And I had done, a 10-minute condensed version of Rent.
Oh,
And
wow.
I know, troubling. A 10-minute condensed version of Assassins. Um, uh, Christopher Durang plays just these little scenes. And I do really, when I look at the work that I direct now, it's just such a direct and obvious line to the kind of staging, the kind of creativity that was asked of us in that festival. So yeah, that's the origin for sure.
I would love to hear what a 10-minute Rent and Assassins looked like.
Yeah. I know I would do anything to be able to see the video. I'm so worried what I would find if I watched it. But it's so earnest, like this love of musical theater, which I guess I've just always had
Yeah.
since I was a kid. And now in a really roundabout way, I think I've found myself in a particular slice of theater, which is not so much just musical theater, but new musical theater, new work.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I live.
Yeah. And also with like a really cool and I don't want to say different composer, but like very different from, the standard musical theater of what you
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
Which yeah, I'm a big Dave Malloy fan, mostly because of Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812. And I
Yeah.
feel strongly that he should have won the Tony for orchestrations for that show.
Yes.
Um,
It's
yeah,
one of my it's one of my favorite shows. I met Dave because I was in a very early workshop of Great Comet, and that's like our origin story. So I have a lot of fondness for that show. It's so beautiful.
the irony is that I'm sitting on my computer is sitting on two coffee table books, and one of them is actually the Great Comet coffee table book. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, hold on, let me see if I can pull it up.
I don't have that book. Oh, that book.
Yeah.
I don't have that book. I'd like that book.
See if Dave has one. He'll sign it for you, I'm sure. Be like, hey, Dave, there's this book I just learned about. Can you personalize it to me? Be like, greatest director ever worked with. Like,
Yeah, maybe I'd be listed as the second greatest director he's ever worked with, as the book is about Rachel Chafkin. But
well,
happy to take
Captain
second place to
adjacent,
Rachel.
you worked with her when you were
Yes.
starting out. So let's talk about you starting out. So you go to NYU. What is it like being concentrating on directing and design, and you're about to graduate and you graduate? What happens next? What are the next steps for you in your career?
I think, I mean, I graduated and immediately started multiple jobs. I think right out of school, oh my gosh, I had a lot of weird jobs. I babysat. I was, uh, how do I even say, like an administrative assistant for a film producer, very briefly.
Mhm.
I worked in restaurants. I was a hostess, hostess. That's what they call me. And I immediately just started making new work with friends
Mhm.
while also still like softly auditioning because I think I still kind of had this acting bug, which I gratefully was released from, maybe 2 3 years out of school. But I immediately went into making new work. So, first production that I made was with a few, gal friends of mine. We made this show called First Ladies Project. We found a producer. We rented this moldy old space in the East Village. We wrote the show. We performed in it. I directed it. We did everything for it. And that show led me to some kind of lifelong working relationships and friendships. Folks I'm still just deep collaborators with today. But that was it. I mean, doing 10-minute festivals, doing new work for my friend, our friend's company, which is called Fresh Ground Pepper. Every month they used to have these incredible like one night theater festivals where there would be a prompt for the month. You'd bring in new work. It could be so messy and sloppy, but it was just your chance to throw things against the wall. And those first few years right out of school, I consider to be, I think, some of my braver years of making art. And I often look back at myself, let's say 10 years, from now, 10 years back, and I'm like, wow, when I didn't have an audience and no one was showing up, I sure took some really big swings. I think that's kind of like the goal, is how you capture that adventurousness, even when you have an audience and you have critics and you have everyone, ready to judge your work. But that was kind of the circuit. It was like work, rehearse when you can, rent space, perform when it happens, and assist. I was assistant directing right out of school, because Rachel Chafkin happened to be my directing teacher for a semester. And I just immediately out of school, I was like, please let me follow you around. And that relationship lasted like 10 years. I mean, and she's still a dear friend, but that assisting and mentoring relationship lasted a really long time.
That's great. And so how did Ars Nova come into your life? Because you eventually did become director in residence there.
Yes, what a cool program. I don't think they do this anymore, but I think it's because I had done some Ant Fest shows, and Ant Fest is their summer festival for emerging artists. I think that happens every June. And I feel like I had done a couple of those. I think I'm like, maybe I directed one of Shayna's concerts at Ars Nova. I directed a show called Debutante that I had made with my friend Ryan Weir, a show called I Heard Sex Noises, which is one of my favorite plays I've ever done.
Back. I mean,
Oh, it's so good. And so Ars Nova asked me to be the director in residence, and the program, which I think was short-lived, was that a director would be supported in working on a new project, and they would get a weekend to do the show. And in addition, you would get to sit in on the play group meetings, which were, I forget if they were every week or every 2 weeks, but that was remarkable, because Ars Nova just always assembles the most remarkable playwrights and makers, and got to meet a lot of writers and watch them in process. And yeah, Ars Nova is where I started working on this musical Cowboy Bob, which has been a beautiful, like very special 8-year journey for me and my collaborators.
yeah. So let's talk about Cowboy Bob. Again, English, it's a language I speak well, apparently. Let's talk about Cowboy Bob, because we were talking how we both know Jackie Burns, and I know
Yeah.
about it because she did the last Cowboy Bob. So let's
Yes.
talk. It's based on a true story, correct? Where
Yeah.
it's this female who disguises herself as Cowboy Bob and robs banks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pretty remarkable story, and it's worth reading about. In Texas Monthly, there's a great article. But our musical is written by Molly Beach Murphy and Gina Phillips. Molly writing the book and Gina composing music and lyrics. And we're all co-creators on it, which is a really cool way to work. And yeah, it's just been many really beautiful years of trying to adapt from this real story and be influenced and inspired by this real story, but for us to create something kind of entirely new from it.
Mhm.
Um, and I also feel like it was in a way, it was like a gateway for me into um, starting musical theater shows from scratch because I had never done that before. I think for
Mhm.
all of us, it was
Yeah.
our first pass, and they're both so they're just such brilliant collaborators, and I'm
Mhm.
lucky to I'm lucky to work with them.
Yeah. So how is it adapting a real story into a musical? What are the steps? Do you decide to take dramatic license on some things? Do you try to stay as true to the story as possible? I mean, because obviously some stories, not a lot of information is out there, some is, and I'm not saying about, I don't know anything about Cowboy Bob other than what I told you.
Yeah, yeah.
But
No.
I mean, because sometimes people take creative licenses. Like I think with Funny Girl, they took a lot of creative license with some of the story from what I've been told.
Mm, yeah,
So what was it like? Because you were saying, you're adapting something from the ground up.
right. I love this question because I just taught a semester at Princeton, and the class
Well,
was a,
we could talk
yeah.
about, yeah, you're a
I'll,
super fancy professor at Princeton first.
no, just for a semester. But um, I like the question because the class is about
Mhm.
adapting musicals. And so, weirdly, this has been on my mind for many, many, many years. But I think the answer to your question is it totally depends on the show. And in terms of Cowboy Bob, we really led from a place of, well, what excites us most? Because there's kind of not a lot of information on the original story and the original bank robberies. There's this one big article, but our musical is kind of so far from that article and has gotten so far over the years. I think because we've just followed our noses in terms of, well, what do we want to say? What excites us? How can this story be something that we're not tethered to, but that gives us a lift off and sends us somewhere completely new? So I think if you heard our musical now, which is still in a place of evolution, you would see the seeds and the inspiration
Mhm.
uh, from this woman's life. But I think you'd be surprised by how different it is, and how many new characters we invented that come into play.
Yeah.
Um, but oh, it's such a fun process. It's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah. As somebody who works for you, like adapting musicals based on stuff, I have this, I feel strong, and I don't mind that things are based on movies, books, what have you, but I just feel like over the past 10 plus years, there's just been so much of it, especially
Yeah.
on Broadway, that
Yes.
for me personally, I'm just really craving like an original, not based on anything musical. And
Yeah.
again, like one of my favorite musicals is Once, based on a movie,
Yeah. Yeah.
Comet, based on why
Full
am I brain
circle.
crazy? War and Peace, Late in the Piazza, based on a novella. Like
Yeah.
I'm waiting for, and I'm like waiting for, them to do like a really campy off-Broadway version of Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Good idea.
should have happened 15 years ago, and people are like bringing back the idea, apparently. In my
Yeah.
head, at least I think that. But for you, how do you feel as like a creative, a director, writer, a choreographer? I say that because apparently you choreograph Three Houses from what I read
Yes.
online.
Yes.
How do you feel about like creating something based on something already or trying to come up with something original, not based on anything?
Yeah, I think the truth is that there's very, very, very little that you will find where the creators could say, I made this up from nothing. It just popped into my mind and I made it. Like there's almost always source material, and maybe it's a book, a novella, a story someone told you, but like
Yeah.
everything is an adaptation of something. And I think right now the industry is fluctuating between these movies that are, let's say, like very, very popular, recognizable IP,
Mhm.
and then shows that are you know uh quite original, don't have an IP you could tether to. But look at the show that I just directed, Three Houses, Dave's show at Signature.
Mhm.
It's a very original piece. It's
Yeah.
not based on any IP, but actually it is based on IP, right? Because it's meaning intellectual property, just to
Mhm.
not wave those initials around. Our show has a lot to do with Three Little Pigs, right? So it's like we're always reaching for storytelling that we know and we recognize and are comforted by to help support the new thing that we're trying to make.
Mhm.
And I think, I mean, look, I agree with you. There are some film adaptations of very popular, beautiful films that I absolutely love. And I think and then there are jukebox musicals and, you know, some of
Mhm.
which I enjoy, some of which I don't. And then there are movie adaptations where I think, I don't know that I would have picked that movie because of XYZ or because the performances are so iconic. How could you ever
Yeah.
repeat them? How could you get away from them? So the answer is kind of in, well, what are the writers, what do the creators want to say with the piece? And
Yeah.
why do they feel that original piece of text is worthy of being re-explored on stage?
Mhm.
That's the question.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that insight. It just, again, I don't have problems. I just feel like there's so much of it going on right now that I'm just craving. I just want to reiterate this so I don't get people aren't going to come after me. But I mean, these are
No,
discussions I've had with
no.
before. So I'm curious to know how Octet came into your life. I was very fortunate enough to see it, and I was very fortunate enough to actually work a few years ago during the pandemic with two of the actors in your show in like the same play reading. We
Oh,
did, a reading of Dog Sees God, and I had Kuhu and Alex Gibson both do it.
amazing.
Yeah, and they were
Amazing.
awesome. And I just, it's so funny because I was thinking back to it and I remember like complaining on Instagram about how I would love to see a show where people aren't talking throughout it. And I think during
Yeah.
the set they were doing that.
Yes.
But it was just a really cool piece of theater. So I'm just curious how that show came into your life.
I had done a show called Ghost Quartet with Dave. I think it was for wow, 5 years before Octet came up,
Mhm.
something like that. And we had just had such a beautiful time on that. And Dave got this residency at Signature, and that was his first show. And he just generously asked me to do it. And I think he knew my background in a cappella, which I think benefited the show, actually in a funny way, just having that knowledge as a singer and as a
Mhm.
performer. Um, and Octet led to our current show, Three Houses. So they're just these very intimate shows of Dave's, and I love working at the scale that we're working at.
Mhm.
And I love, like, the way he writes for voices is just so um it's so thrilling and surprising and always very comforting to me.
Mhm.
um yeah, so it's like I directed Octet and then I kind of can step back from it and say, like, I'm also a fan of this. It's just
Yeah.
such a beautiful, strange piece of writing, that I feel very, very lucky to have worked on.
Yeah. And I feel like Octet has had a few lives even after, it was at Signature. I mean, you're a fancy award-winning director now, from that show. I say that, but I remember you on the podcast. You're like the other podcast, you're like, oh, whatever, it's Lortel, but it's still like a thing.
No, I'm thrilled to have a Lortel.
Yeah.
It's quite an honor. I think I think because when I won it,
Mhm.
we were COVID had just hit. So
Mm.
I won it in like a bathrobe, watching a streaming version of it. And I think it's easy for me to downplay because I remember just being so absolutely shocked that I had won.
Yeah.
And then I immediately got my eyelashes stuck in the zipper of my sweater in like my haste. I was like, oh my God, I got to take this sweatshirt off so that I can talk to everyone. And immediately like got it, my like, you know, gross. Basically, it was a very humbling experience after, getting to win this award. But Octet went on to have a run at Berkeley Rep, which was really
Yeah.
cool. We got to keep working on it.
Mhm.
And that's the dream with new work
Yeah.
is you premiere the show
Mhm.
and hopefully it goes well. But
Mhm.
more to the point, you get to do it again because it's not going to be done the first time you do it.
Mhm.
I mean, work is never done, but I think about Three Houses. I'm so proud of this musical. It's so beautiful. It's beautifully performed. and we rehearsed the show in 3 weeks,
Wow.
and it's it wants more time, it wants more work. We've learned so much from it. And I think the complexity of the musical theater space is you very, very, very rarely have the chance to go back
Yeah.
and get back in there, until another director picks it up a few years later, and gets to put their take on it.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that too, because it just came into my head that Almost Famous was at the Globe and then it went to Broadway. And then it most recently had another workshop,
Yeah. You
which is
know,
and you rarely see that for a show
yeah,
that was on Broadway.
I really admire that. I didn't get to see Almost Famous, but I remember kind of hearing people be like, "Well, why are they? They've made it to Broadway. Why are they going back?" I'm like, because it's not done. Because if you have the luck and you have the opportunity, and you have
Mhm.
the finances to
Yeah.
keep working on the show, and hopefully not in vain. Like hopefully, there's a point at which maybe a show is just done and you have to leave
Yeah.
it, but sometimes not. And I think we look at Broadway as like um, the ultimate destination for peace, which of
Mhm.
course financially it is, but like spiritually and artistically, uh, it doesn't mean it's done. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's finished. It just means you got cut off. You
Yeah.
got cut off from working on it.
Well, I do agree in that in some sense because if look, you have certain play revivals or musical revivals, and you have different directors and creatives working on it. And I mean, Shakespeare is different because Shakespeare, you could do whatever the bleep you want with Shakespeare.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
look at, I mean, Sondheim was alive at the time, but look at what they did with Company. And
Yeah. Yeah.
you can still tweak and depending on the rights and all that stuff, you can
Yes.
make it different than what it was originally. So there is
Yeah.
that aspect of it as well. And they can bring it to Broadway, not bring it to Broadway, what have you.
Yeah.
So talk about your working relationship with Dave Malloy. How did
Hmm.
that come about? I mean, obviously you can't talk about if you guys have any upcoming things, but hopefully there's more things in the pipeline. What do you hope for Three Houses?
Hmm.
What have,
Well, Dave, I met Dave as a performer because
yes.
I auditioned for Great Comet, and had, 2 beautiful weeks getting to do that. Highly, highly, highly miscast, but very happy to be there.
Can I ask who you were in the cast?
Yeah, I think I was Helene, who is played by Amber Gray on Broadway, who is, she's like a divine,
Hmm.
um, like remarkable performer. And yeah, I was happy for the 2 weeks I had. Working with Dave is incredible. I think he's a remarkable collaborator, and it's only gotten better. This is our third show, and I
Hmm.
think especially after co-teaching this class uh, at Princeton, this musical theater class, I feel like we have really cracked into something new as collaborators in terms of, I think, both respecting each other's space, but also just leaving all the doors open. Like Dave is so visual. He
Hmm.
has beautiful ideas, directing ideas,
Hmm.
staging ideas, things that he puts into his script that I'm very inspired by. And I also feel that at this point, 10 years into our collaboration, sometimes I can say, I dream of a harmony here. And, he may take that. He may take that and work off of it. And um, I just feel deep mutual respect, and I feel love. Like I love him, I care for him so deeply, and I know he feels the same for me. And I feel like we're on the same page about the kind of experience we want audiences to have, which is like a very um, warm, challenging,
Hmm.
humorous, and heartfelt experience.
So with Three Houses, where do you see that? Do you see it, past signature going elsewhere, working on it? Because you mentioned with new works, it's
Yeah.
always evolving. So what's your hope with Three Houses?
I mean, of course, that would be the thrill, is that some inspired theater company takes us on, or producer, they take us on, and we get to have another run. We get to have another pass at it.
Mhm.
Um, but the complications of that are how remarkably expensive it is to do a musical.
Mhm.
Um, it's particularly expensive off Broadway.
Mhm.
And then of course triple that when you get to Broadway. And then schedules, Dave has multiple huge shows coming up this coming year, which I'm very excited to see. He's got The Witches, he's got Black Swan. Um, so, you know, the dream is to work on it again, but there's nothing in the works. It would be very cool to record the music for it. Because I think people who don't get to see the show at least will be delighted to hear the music. And I know that's the way that a lot of people got to experience Octet and Ghost Quartet was through the recordings that we made.
Yeah.
So that's a super valid experience of the pieces as well.
Yeah. I'm sure that'll happen. I mean, if Octet and why can't I speak? And three ghosts, right? Ghost. Oh my God. Why
I like Three Ghosts.
three
Ghost
ghosts? Yeah.
Quartet. I know
Three
he doesn't make
houses
it easy with all the
including three.
numbers.
It's going to be the two shows combined, three houses filled with three ghosts.
Yeah.
The next Stephen Lloyd piece you work on its signature.
And to be honest, Three Houses kind of is three ghosts. So come, come. We're open till June 16th if this podcast comes out before then.
It will.
Come.
It will.
Yeah.
It's probably coming out tomorrow. I'm not going to lie.
Hello. Quick turn.
Hey, so quick turnaround.
Love
So
that.
I'm curious to know because I just really do not know the answer to this, and it's probably a very juvenile question. But for you, you've directed straight plays and you've directed musicals. Is your approach the same? Is it different? What is it like directing straight? What is it directing musical? Take it away.
That's a great question. I think my answer is I think it's the same every time in that I try to prepare.
Mhm.
Um, I'm always panicked leading up to a show. I try to prepare. I battle my own concentration limitations in terms of like being able to read a script, trying to come up with staging in advance, knowing that it will change.
Mhm.
I try to come up with images, both physical images as inspiration and then images that I see in the play, knowing, okay, I have no idea what's going to happen between this moment and this moment, but I think I know what this moment is, and I think I know what this moment is. And in fact, that's kind of to me enough. I mean, it's like, what are the most potent things happening in the show?
Mhm.
Um, if it's I've directed very few revivals. I had the luck of directing POTUS, which is a published play, but other than that, so much of the work is new. So I'll go into the process,
Mhm.
kind of just identifying, okay, what are the best parts of this piece? What are the most potent parts? And then what are the parts that I'm not quite sure yet how they are lifting the
Mhm.
strongest parts? And I take that to the author or the authors and we talk through those things. But so often, because of the time, you just figure it out on its feet and you hopefully have the writer in the room with you and you say, this is amazing. I need help with this. And then you either rewrite it or they explain it to me and say, you've clearly missed the point. It's this. And I go, great.
Mhm.
Um, but that's it. It's the process is always completely the same and utterly different
Yeah.
because that's what the play requires. And most of the plays that I direct, to be honest, have a musical element. And that's usually why I either agree to do them or am lucky enough to get to work on them is because there's a music element or a dance element.
Mhm.
Um, because music is the language that I'm just, I don't mean this technically, but maybe more like spiritually, I'm just the most versed in music.
Mhm.
Um, it's my best, it's my best language. It's my best bet for directing, I think.
How did Laura Benanti's Nobody Cares come into your life?
Well, that was cool. I met Laura doing a 1 week workshop
Mhm.
of a lovely piece of a friend of hers. And Laura and I hung out in a house for a week, putting flashcards on a wall. And at the end of the week, she said, I have a one woman show that I'm doing. I've written it entirely myself, but I really like the way you think about structure, which is very flattering because it's like it's the flashcard method that I use with Molly and Gina from Cowboy Bob from back when I was working on I Heard Sex Noises. It's always the same
Mhm.
structural process. And she kind of took a leap of faith and asked me to work with her. And it's a great show. And it, it really connects me to my roots of working in sketch comedy for many, many years. I
Mhm.
worked with this company called Political Subversities, and kind of cut my comedy chops co-directing that with Andrew Neisler, who is now one of the associate artistic directors of Ars Nova. So it's like beautiful full circle.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about before we came on about how I'm now working in medical forever and ever. And you
Yes.
said something about personal assisting and
Yeah.
saying that you might have to get back into that. So as somebody who is a director, has the Lortel Award, um, what is it like in between directing jobs? How frequently do they come to you? How do they come to you? What do you do when you are not working? Yeah.
Oh, it's a really good question. I had uh, I'd say full-time job, but I think it just depended on the week. But basically a job as a personal assistant, and I had that job for 12 years.
Mhm.
Um, in the beginning, I was doing personal assisting and restaurant work, and then I was able to just kind of narrow it to assisting. But the job was a perfect job for me because it was flexible,
Mhm.
beautiful family, beautiful coworkers. We kind of shared the duties, and if one of us had to leave to go for a gig, we could. Um, but most of my directing career up until maybe last year, anytime I wasn't working on a show, I would just be there, which meant that I wasn't spending a lot of time looking for new work, meeting new people, prepping.
Mhm.
I was just like immediately going back and trying to make enough money to afford to take a job in the hobby that we call directing.
Mhm.
And then I took a leap last year and said, okay, I'm going to leave this day job temporarily and see what it's like to try and fill this full time. And I definitely made in that year the least amount of money that I've ever made, which was quite scary. And then this year has been wonderful and full. I've had 3 houses, this teaching job,
Mhm.
which taught on Mondays, gave me some stability. Um, but now summer, it's like I have a few workshops,
Mhm.
um, but it's much lighter. And my job now is to try and prepare for the jobs that are coming
Mhm.
in the fall and next year and try not to have uh, anxiety about the emptiness and say, no, no, your job is that directing work. It's just not here yet.
Yeah.
But I also, like I'm getting married this year. I need to make make some money and support myself through the summer. So yeah, I mean, I might be knocking on that family's door and begging for a job back
Yeah.
next week. I don't know. But I think it's about being open to the possibility that things will come.
Yeah.
Uh, having that delusion of like, yes, it'll all work out, and also being practical and just finding a job that can support you in
Mhm.
the interim,
Yeah.
which I've been lucky to have.
I know that we talked about, I said like I manifest things for people. So would you ever, and you really enjoyed your time at Princeton, would you ever consider teaching, doing like your own, because a lot of actors and performers, they teach and they coach. Would you ever consider doing something like that for directing, adapting, writing, what have you?
Yeah. I mean, directing was, I mean, not directing, teaching was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. I've never felt so unqualified to do anything in my life. Dave had taught before, but I really hadn't. And after teaching that class, I feel really keen to teach that class again,
Mhm.
which was not just about adapting for musical theater, but it was about creativity and collaboration.
Mhm.
I don't when I think about like, oh, could I teach a directing class?
Mhm.
I would say, no, I'm not qualified to teach a directing class, but could I teach collaboration, creativity, and adaptation again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I could. And oh, I'd be thrilled. And I would love to co-teach with Dave again because it's so
Yeah.
fun to co-teach.
I'm just saying, I think you two can like branch out on your own and
Yes.
master classes, and I'm pretty sure you will get a lot of people to sign up for those.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Isn't it?
I think it helps when Dave is my co-teacher. We get a lot more interest, but yeah, maybe I will have the confidence in the future to
Yeah.
teach our branded class. It's
Yeah.
very
And
fun.
I just like manifest things for people. And then when it's for me, I'm just like, I need money. So I'm taking a full-time job at a front desk. Anyway,
That's
so
right. That's right. But
uh,
the manifesting that you send out into the world, I'd like to believe comes back to you in
thank
some way.
you. I appreciate it. So I want to talk really quickly in our last few minutes because, like I said, we met. Well, we didn't meet there, but I saw you there at a short film festival. So, and you said you're not like super well versed in the film world, but you have directed some shorts. So, how did those come into your life? What is it like directing for film as opposed to theater for you?
Um, I love directing for film, and I think a big dream would be to try to transition into TV in the next few few years.
Mhm.
One, because I love TV. I'm a huge fan of it, and two, um,
Yeah, I
it's a
heard you watch hours and hours of television. I do too.
I
So
do our
it's
yeah.
I will always find The Office and I will always have it on my television.
Yeah, me too. I love The Office.
Yeah.
I made my first short like quite deep in the pandemic. I think it was 2021, and I had to ask some friends if they had any shorts that I could direct and try my hand at it. And everyone was busy or they didn't want to, or they didn't get back to me. So, out of a little bit of frustration, I was like, well, I'll write my own damn short. How hard could it be?
Mhm.
And it was hard. It was hard. And it was
Yeah.
also so fun. I'd never written by myself before. And that short is called Help Me Mary. Um, I'm quite proud of it. It's 15 minutes. It's about a hospice nurse. And I think it's a comedy, I should say, as I say hospice. And it's about some experiences that I had in the hospital system and about emotional regulation. In a weird way, I feel like it's a short almost about what it feels like to be a director
Mhm.
and how little room there can feel for your own emotional experience because your job, at least the way I've taught and I've been taught and observed, is like to care for others, to take care of their emotional life. And that can give you some fatigue. And you have to find outlets for your feelings, whether you're dealing with loss or grief or just being in a room with people who need a lot from you
Mhm.
and don't have a lot of room for you. So that's helped me marry, and I'm really proud of that. And then this last year, I got to make this movie Egg Timer with two of my best friends, Ryan Weir and Claire Rothrock. We've been working together again like 15 years since I heard sex noises at Ars Nova. So it's a beautiful
Yeah.
long runway of work, and that's about a couple trying to decide whether or not they're ever going to be ready to have a child.
Yeah.
And very funny and sweet and tender. And
Yeah.
yeah, they it's been a delight. I hope to make another one maybe next year.
I will
Really
say, I
fun.
think, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's
To
it.
say, I think out of the three films I saw that night, I think that was probably my favorite one. No offense to our mutual friend, but I think that was that was my favorite one. So, as we're winding down, do you have any dream projects that you would want to work on?
Yeah, I love this. I love this question because I think I love it and it scares me because I'm like, oh, I never have the answer to it. But that my true answer, which I don't think is a cop out, is like my dream project hasn't been written yet.
That
It's something new. It's something thrilling. Uh it's something whose music sings to me and helps me leap out of my feet. And by feet, I mean shoes. I would love to keep my feet on as best I can. But like my dream project is one that I'm already working on. I'm Molly, Gina, and I, who did Cowboy Bob, we're working on an adapting a documentary called Boy State, which was on Apple TV, and it's just an incredible documentary. It's like my dream project
I'm
is
gonna write
already in
it
the
down.
pipeline.
Boy State.
Yeah,
I will
yeah.
say,
Please watch it. It's such a good movie.
It's a very common answer when people are like, it hasn't been written. It has, so that's a very common answer. So don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah, that being said, like would love to direct Assassins, you know,
I
would
I
love.
I fucking love Assassins.
Yeah.
And I really, really enjoyed the revival that they did at CSC a few years ago. The one thing I was very about was they had all the actors come out in masks and then they would take the masks off.
Yes.
And I don't know why that was necessary, but it was a directing choice, so I didn't really
Yes.
read too much into that. But
Yeah. I think that's just the land of COVID theater, those
yeah,
3 or 4 years and
yeah,
trying to relate to the moment that we're in.
yeah. I will say when the last virtual reading I directed was a new work by Neil Abud, and we were talking about it, and he's like, "Oh, do you think I should write them coming on screen in masks?" And I was like, "I don't think that's necessary." Like,
Yeah,
and I was also just like, these virtual plays are for people to escape what's happening in the world. So I would prefer them like not coming in with masks on.
that's
So
right.
we didn't do
That's
that.
right.
Okay. So, sorry, were you about to say something?
No, no, I was just thinking like when we did Octet in Berkeley,
Hmm.
numbers had swung back up for COVID. And because I had the audience and the actors entering from the same place
Hmm.
and the audience was wearing masks,
Yeah.
did have the actors wear masks. One, because they were interacting with the audience, so it's not safe. And two, because I was like, right, this is just a reflection of this moment. So it's an interesting question. Like,
Yeah.
what do we want to escape? What do we want to see that reflects back to us the time we're in? Yeah, it's interesting. It's
I give
compelling.
it like another 5 years, and then there's going to be like a hit of COVID plays that are happening. Like, remember
Well,
that?
three houses is a COVID play. Please,
Oh,
please come see it. There are no masks in it, but it is indeed about our time in COVID.
well, check it out, everyone. All right. So let's do the actor studio questions, which I know you're excited about, hopefully.
Yes, yes.
I'll wind
Trying
down.
to
Okay.
remember what they are, but I'm excited
Okay.
about them.
Number one, what is your favorite word?
Delight.
What is your least favorite word?
Uh, no.
What turns you on?
The movie Challengers.
I was about to tell a story about that. I'm like, don't bring it up.
Leave
Okay.
it. Leave it.
Leave it. Leave it. Okay. What turns you off?
Dismissiveness.
What is your favorite curse word?
Fuck.
It's such a great one.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
You can use it in so many different ways. What sound or noise do you love?
Uh, the sound of my cat meowing when I come home.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Ugh, I despise hearing water being poured, particularly on screen.
Interesting. What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
Oh God. Um, yeah, in another life, I would have loved to have worked in art history.
What profession would you not like to do?
Math,
That's fair.
the profession of math.
Yeah. If heaven and as he would say, and finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You did okay.
And who are your students? I feel like always awkward how to end that like once they answer. So I do the James Lipton and who are your students? So Annie, is there anything you would like to add, share, life advice, questions, problems, concerns? Oh, my hand just farted.
Hmm.
I made a fart noise with my hand. Sorry.
I like that noise.
Mm.
Um, you didn't ask for favorite smell, which I would say
That is not a question
it's
on
not
there,
a.
but I will, since you're so keen on that, what is your favorite smell?
I was just joking to someone that it's not my favorite smell, but I don't mind the smell of skunk. And I'm not afraid to say that. I don't mind it.
I don't know
Um,
if I've ever smelled the smell of skunk, but mine is coffee, which is ironic because I don't drink it.
I don't drink it either, but it's intoxicating smell. No, I'm very grateful that you asked me to be on. I feel like any opportunity to talk about making new work is a good one, and I'm excited to meet people that are also interested in that and trying to forge their way in like a new workspace, which feels like very scarce space and sometimes is, but it's not. Like you can make a movie, you can make new work um anytime, anywhere. So thank
Yeah.
you for asking me to come on and like nerd out about it. I love it.
Course. One more question before we go, because I sometimes forget to ask this. Why do you think theater is important?
um
If you don't have an answer, totally fine.
Well, sometimes I'm not sure. And I think that's like the constant negotiation. I'm like, I don't know, is this important? Is this actually important? But I think it's just important to be with people.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what Three Houses is about. It's important to be with people. You don't
Yeah.
even need to talk. You don't even really need to look at each other, but to feel each other in a space,
Mhm.
and to experience a beginning and a middle and an end of something and walk out of a space knowing you've all gone through this thing.
Mhm.
That does feel important. um it feels important to have collective release.
Mhm.
Like the world is really fucking hard and complicated, and like, do we need plays? I guess sometimes you could say no. We need water, we need survival, we need health, we need dignity. But art is the backbone of like release and relief and humor and challenge, and it would be such a sad life without it. So I'm so grateful to have it and to be able to practice it
That's great. Well, thank
till
you.
the robots come anyway.
Oh, goodness. I saw something yesterday. It was a quote from someone saying, like, I wish AI can do my laundry and dishes so I can write and create. I don't want AI creating and writing, so I have to do laundry and dishes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, would love for them to re-examine the model there.
Yeah, I will say I have used Chat GPT to write cover letters. Um, so that I will say I have used it for.
Yeah,
Yeah, but not to like write a play.
it's helpful.
Yeah. Well, Annie, thank you so much for coming on. If for those listening, please go see Three Houses at Signature until June 16th, correct? June 16th.
Yeah, yeah.
Please stay on once we're done recording so I can say a proper goodbye. Anything else? We're good?
No,
Okay.
thanks, Allison. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for coming on, and thank you all for listening.